What if the opportunity you've dreamed about your entire life came at the cost of destroying someone else's? What if honoring your father's legacy meant betraying your own family? And what if the biggest villain in All American wasn't another team, but the impossible choices each character is forced to make? That's exactly what Episode 3, Fight for Your Right, explores. At first glance, it looks like another football drama packed with emotional conversations and relationship conflicts. But beneath the surface, this episode is about something much bigger. It's about legacy. It's about identity. And it's about the painful reality that sometimes chasing your dreams means hurting the people you love most. By the time this episode ends, Jordan Baker, Amina, Khalil, Layla, and Cassius all find themselves standing at emotional crossroads where no decision feels like the right one. And trust me, some of the biggest moments in this episode aren't the loudest ones. They're the quiet conversations that completely change how we see these characters. So let's break down everything you might have missed. Before we jump into the story itself, there's one important detail that makes Season 8 feel so different from every season that came before. The entire final season unfolds over just 1 week. That may not sound like a huge deal at first, but think about it. Every conversation, every argument, every decision, every emotional breakdown happens within only a few days. That compressed timeline means there's almost no time for the characters to recover from their mistakes. If someone makes the wrong decision today, they have to live with the consequences tomorrow. And Episode 3 takes full advantage of that pressure. Instead of giving everyone time to think, the story forces them to act, sometimes before they're even ready. Let's start with the storyline that drives almost everything else in this episode: Jordan Baker. Throughout the entire series, Jordan has lived under one enormous shadow: Billy Baker. Whether he was trying to become a better quarterback, a better teammate, or eventually a better coach, Jordan has always measured himself against his father. Not because Billy asked him to, but because Jordan wanted to prove, to himself more than anyone, that he was worthy of carrying the Baker name. Now, fate places him in front of the exact opportunity he's been unknowingly preparing for: the head coaching job at Beverly High. On paper, it's perfect. The school where he played, the program his father transformed, the place where Billy Baker became more than just a coach. He became a mentor, a father figure, a leader. For Jordan, stepping into that role almost feels destined. But what happens next changes everything, because dreams rarely arrive without a price. One of the smartest things this episode does is make us believe Jordan's decision is about football. But it isn't. Football is simply the excuse. The real conflict is much deeper. Jordan isn't asking himself, "Do I want this job?" He's asking, "What kind of man do I want to become?" That's a completely different question. Taking the job means honoring Billy's legacy, but it also means replacing Cassius, someone who's only recently become part of Jordan's life again, someone who's trying to rebuild not only his career, but his entire family. For the first time, Jordan realizes something Billy probably understood years ago. Leadership isn't about winning games. It's about carrying the weight of decisions that affect other people's lives. And suddenly, that shiny coaching opportunity doesn't feel nearly as exciting anymore. One of the most emotional scenes in the episode comes when Jordan stands in front of a cardboard cutout of Billy Baker. At first, it might seem like a simple callback to one of the show's most beloved characters, but there's something much deeper happening here. Jordan isn't actually talking to Billy. He's talking to the version of Billy that lives inside his own mind. Every piece of advice, every lesson, every memory, they've all become part of who Jordan is. Psychologists sometimes describe grief as continuing a relationship rather than ending one, and that's exactly what we see. Billy may be gone, but Jordan still asks himself, what would Dad do? That single question has guided him for years. The cutout becomes a symbol of something every fan of All American understands. Billy Baker never really left this story. His influence is everywhere. In Jordan, in Spencer, in Olivia, in the culture of Beverly, and even in Crenshaw. His legacy isn't measured by championships. It's measured by the people he inspired. Meanwhile, someone else's future is hanging by a thread: Cassius. Here's what makes this storyline so heartbreaking. Cassius isn't the villain. he's not standing in Jordan's way. In fact, he's trying to rebuild everything he's lost: his career, his family, his sense of purpose. For him, Beverly High isn't just a job, it's a second chance, which makes Jordan's opportunity feel almost cruel, because sometimes life creates situations where nobody is wrong, and somebody still gets hurt. That's what makes All-Americans so different from most sports dramas. There are no easy heroes. There are no obvious villains. Just good people forced into impossible situations. While Jordan wrestles with one impossible decision, another mystery quietly begins pulling viewers in. A mystery involving Amina. Ever since she unexpectedly returned home from Dinsburg, one question has lingered over the season. What really happened? Everyone seems to know pieces of the story, but nobody knows the whole truth. Except maybe KJ. And the clues dropped in this episode suggest Amina's secret could end up becoming just as important as Jordan's coaching decision. Because sometimes the biggest battles aren't fought on the football field. They're fought in silence. And what Amina is hiding could change everything.
Just when Jordan is struggling with one impossible decision, the episode shifts its focus to another emotional battle, Amina's. Ever since her sudden return from boarding school, something has felt off. Episode 3 finally starts revealing why, but instead of giving us all the answers, the writers leave just enough mystery to keep us guessing. What's fascinating isn't only what Amina did, it's why she did it. Her actions suggest someone willing to risk everything for what she believes is right. That instantly echoes Olivia Baker's journey throughout the series, showing how the next generation is beginning to follow the same path. At the same time, Khalil is fighting a completely different battle. His confidence is slipping, and beneath the tough exterior is a young man terrified that one rejection could define his future. The episode quietly reminds us that the biggest opponent isn't always on the football field. Sometimes it's self-doubt. Meanwhile, KJ steps into an unexpected role, proving that loyalty sometimes means making risky decisions for the people you care about. As these stories unfold together, one message becomes clear. Every character is carrying a secret. The only difference is how much longer they can keep it hidden. On the surface, episode 3 is about a coaching opportunity, but underneath, it's asking a much bigger question. Can you honor your past without sacrificing your present? Jordan's dilemma isn't really about football. It's about identity. Billy Baker's legacy has shaped Jordan's entire life, but now Jordan must decide whether he'll simply follow in his father's footsteps or create a legacy of his own. At the same time, Cassius represents another side of the story. He's proof that rebuilding your life takes years, while losing everything can happen overnight. That's why there's no true villain here. Everyone is simply chasing a future they believe they've earned. The emotional weight of the episode comes from realizing that sometimes two good people can want the same thing, and only one can have it. That makes every conversation feel heavier, every silence more meaningful, and every decision impossible. By the end of episode 3, the story leaves viewers with far more questions than answers. Jordan still stands at the crossroads between family and legacy. Amina's secret remains only partially revealed, suggesting that the biggest emotional confrontation is still ahead. Khalil must decide whether failure becomes the end of his story or the motivation to fight even harder. The episode also reinforces one of All-American's biggest themes across all 8 seasons. Football has never been the real story. Football creates opportunities, but family, friendship, forgiveness, and identity determine what happens when the game is over. As the final season races towards its conclusion, every choice carries greater consequences, because there's almost no time left to fix mistakes. And that's exactly what makes this final chapter so compelling. The series isn't just asking who will win. It's asking what success actually costs. If episode 3 is any indication, the biggest victories in All-American won't happen under the stadium lights. They'll happen when these characters finally choose honesty over fear and people over pride. But what do you think? Will Jordan accept the Beverly coaching job? Can Cassius forgive him if he does? And what do you think Amina is still hiding? Let me know your theories in the comments below.